Chancellor John Healey's first budget in October will not commit to the defence spending target, as Danny was just talking about there. He previously insisted, of course, it was vital to keep Britain safe. And he resigned from Sir Keir Starmer's cabinet in June, criticising the Prime Minister and the then Chancellor Rachel Reeves for failing to commit to spending 3% of GDP on defence. But according to the Financial Times, he won't set a date to hit that target until next year. Well, let's talk to Francis Tusa, editor of Defence Analysis. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, Cathy.
Let's just remind ourselves what John Healey said in his letter to the Prime Minister at the time. He wrote to Keir Starmer, "You've been unable and the Treasury has been unwilling to commit the resources that the nation needs to defend the country at this time of rising threats." So what's changed in your view?
Don't sound glib. He's now the Chancellor of the Exchequer. The buck stops with him as regards spending. And I suspect he's been presented now with some incredibly unpalatable news about the parlous state of the nation's finances. And the problem is he's now between a rock and a hard place. He made a principled resignation on the basis of not hitting 3% of GDP on defence by 2030. And he's now sort of going, hey, whatever, movable feast, we'll sort this one out. So I have to say he's lost, if this turns out to be true, that he is not going to deal with defence in 2026, but leave it for another basically 18 months. His credibility over defence is now shot.
And if you were Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, you'd feel pretty aggrieved, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, the fact that John Healey resigns and then faced with the same data that obviously Rachel Reeves said, look, John, here's the situation. He goes, OK, it's a fair cop governor. It's not good. And it's not just his reputation will be shot within the UK. His reputation in Europe will now be shot. People were very supportive in other MODs about the fact they were going, good, someone in Britain is now taking defence seriously, and they understand that you have to spend more. So well done, John Healey. There was some amazing messages, public messages from other Secretary of State ministers on Twitter, saying how much they appreciated his wisdom and counsel and whatever. Well, I think you'll find today they're going, what's happened in the last 5 weeks? That person, that John Healey they knew, has gone.
I mean, is there a more sinister interpretation, or more cynical perhaps, that any minister who goes into the Treasury ends up going native and doing what the civil servants tell them?
I think that is absolutely true, inevitable. It would be lovely to come across someone going as Chancellor or Chief Secretary or both who just say, no, the Treasury is not the wisest and the best Department of State in Whitehall. In many cases, it's a bit like, was it Oscar Wilde's definition of the cynic, someone who knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing? The Treasury, in my experience on how they deal with defence, knows the value of absolutely zero. And they come up with these strange arguments about you shouldn't spend here, you should spend here because it's cheaper. And they haven't got a clue. And I suspect that blindness for defence extends probably to every other Department of State.
Right. What have you had any conversations with the armed forces and what they make of this?
Speaking with people over the last week, a relatively common comment has been morale in insert name of headquarters of Army, Navy, Air Force. Morale is rock bottom. People are more or less slitting their wrists. I believe at least one service chief is saying, look, if this goes on, I'm out of here. And this is strange because even before the Defence Investment Plan, which is scant weeks old, if you go back to the November 2025 defence budget, there were, if you read the budget books, some pretty impressive increases in defence spending.
But you really think
why, 9 months later, is everyone so depressed and, in inverted commas, suicidal? Surely the money was coming through anyway. But everyone I'm speaking to has said, well, if the money is coming through, no one knows where it's going.
But do you really think that service chiefs will carry out that threat that you just alluded to resign over this? Don't often see that, do you?
Will any of them do what is often referred to as putting on dress uniform and marching across Whitehall for demanding an interview with the Prime Minister? No. Might one and maybe two of them just decide they'll resign, they'll retire early? I think that is, at the moment, looking really quite likely. And there are other people I know in the, well, not the absolute top echelons of each of the services, but one and maybe two ranks below, who've just said, what's the point of me being here? And they've left.
There was a lot of people saying It's a question of priorities, and if you spend the money on defence, you won't have the money for schools and other public services. How crucial do you believe this is for the country's preparedness, security? How much time do we have to wait, really?
It is very important. Now, by the way, I make my living out of criticising the MOD and how it spends its money. So no one should take what I'm saying now as I'm saying just open the taps and let a huge amount of money flow into the MOD. I'm actually against that because I think a lot of it would be wasted. But I think we should take some lessons from, say, Estonia. Estonia has basically put itself into recession to fund defence because it sees it as very important. But of course, they've got
Russia breathing down their neck rather more than we do.
Yeah, but they have the knowledge their economy is robust enough. They will rebound when they choose to let it happen. Whereas over here, I don't believe we have that assurance the economy is robust enough.
Yeah.
I think the problem we have in Britain at the moment is something I call the 1,700-kilometre duvet. Basically, from nearest part of Russia to Britain, 1,700 kilometres. And even with the Russians just fire a missile, ballistic missile, it's got to go across the Baltic states, through Polish airspace, through the Baltic, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, Germany, then the North Sea. And so we in Britain are basically snuggled up in our duvet because we go, to misquote Neville Chamberlain, the Baltic states are small countries far away of which we know little.
Yeah.
And I think we are potentially going to be really nastily shocked as when we see a very active Russian campaign of destabilization, which, if you look at the number of fires and problems with infrastructure and so-called substations, there's already a Russian campaign against the UK, as it is all over Europe. Just imagine what we're experiencing at the moment, but 10 times worse.
That's a pretty brutal thought. Francis Tusa, thank you very much for giving us that analysis, as ever, editor of Defence Analysis there.